I'm here with Ayla Schafer. Please, Ayla, welcome to the Healing Festival.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming. And you are a composer, singer, songwriter. You are a musician of ceremonies, ceremonial musician, if I'm correct. You are also a voice coach. Can you share with us a bit about your journey with music? Because I read, for example, on internet, that you started to go to the festivals quite young, which I think is exceptional. So please, can you share something with us?
Yeah, I did. I started sharing my songs, I think about age 16. It was such a strong natural impulse to somehow express and share with others what was moving in me. That was such a strong force already I think I started writing at age 15. But I went through quite a rough journey in the early years, because at that time I didn't know, for example, I didn't know that festivals like this existed, or basically what was possible for me at that point was playing in England we call them pubs, places where people are drinking alcohol and basically like checking out, not being present, not really listening, being in spaces where they're actually trying to not feel and not listen deeply. And there I was going with my absolute naked, raw, vulnerable soul, which has always been the place from where I share my music. It's always been that. It's gone through, its different phases and kind of maybe the themes and the way that I share changes, but the source has been like my deep heart, soul space. And it was honestly really quite painful, and I don't know if it's right to say damaging. It was what it was, and that was my journey, and it taught me a lot about how I didn't want to be, what was not right for me.
It showed you the direction.
Not this way.
Yeah.
It was kind of encouraging me to look for something else. So, the perfection somehow in how things, in how our journey is laid out for us. And I reached a point, I think I was about 21, where I think I came home after sharing. I did a concert in a pub and had some really drunk people be quite abusive to me. And I remember coming home just kind of lying on my bed weeping, because I was like, this is not where I belong. Like, this is not where I belong. And I don't know what else exists. I didn't know that this existed. I mean, it's also back then, I think things like this were just beginning, actually.
Yeah, and maybe smaller.
And many people don't know that a scene like this exists. You have to find it or look for it, or it appears. But from that moment, I quit music. I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. I hate this. This is just too painful, depleting. And that was what compelled me to go traveling. I went on my first big journey to South America, which opened up so much for me. I went there basically like leaving behind my identity as a musician. I'm just going as like a fresh new babe,
exploring.
Leaving that behind, and discovered there for the first time really ever in my life these ways of music being part of prayer and ritual and ceremony and honouring life and being in community, and songs that come from ancient lineages and traditions and old songs that have been sang for thousands of years. And for me at that point in my life, it was just like, absolutely couldn't believe.
Eye-opening.
It was such a profound opening. it was a reorientation, I feel like, you know, from having that sense of I don't belong here. It was kind of like, felt a bit like life picked me up and went like, here's your path now, you know, now keep walking. And I believe our paths in life, you know, they are ongoing. I don't feel like I started walking that path and now I'm like, oh yeah, I've arrived. It's like I'm still on that path and it continues to show me and evolve and grow. And
I see. That sounds beautiful. And you mentioned that you started to share your music, or you're actually what the forces which started to move inside of you. Can you tell me what is moving inside of you? What is it?
Wow, it's an interesting question. It's well, there's many. I feel like I'm kind of seeing, you know, this is a very English, tributaries of a river. I don't know if people listening will understand that word, but it's like tributaries are all the small rivers that flow in and become one river. So in some ways, like what I sense is there are many
streams.
There are many streams, but it's like the pull, you know, like what is kind of pulling all these threads together is a very deep longing to come home to the deep knowing and the deep truth of belonging to this sacred force of life, like belonging to this land, this earth, belonging, you know, not just physically but spiritually, like knowing my soul, my spirit is born from this greater spirit of life. And you know, being a human in this time in earth, there is so much, we are so separated from something which really is our very nature. And I feel it, and I think many of us feel this call, like we are being called to return to our deep nature. And this I kind of feel is like to
contribute to the river, the mainstream.
Yeah.
Not the mainstream, but the, yeah.
So if that makes sense, like, you know, if I name one force that is moving through me, it's like that is the force that's kind of pulling all the different aspects, because within that there is, you know, there's my very personal human part, like the force of just needing to express and understand and process and you know, put my human experience into form, like give them a prayer form that is bypassing my mind. You know, this is the power of music. It's such a language of the heart and the soul. And yeah, that's like one of the tributaries.
Yeah, I love the metaphor of it. I love it. Was there some like one person, event or experience which really played a role in your life, like as this initiation into something bigger, who or what really showed you that you can contribute with your creative force to this big river?
Two things come to mind. I mean, the event was that those 2 years of my life that I was in South America for the first time. You know, it was a big event. It happened over 2 years, and it had many different phases and many different chapters. And there was a part of that time that I was in Peru, working with the plant medicines there, and then at a part of that time I was in Mexico working with the traditions there, which is a fusion of the native traditions from Mexico and also the native traditions from North America. They kind of blended, being in a lot of ceremonies and rituals like the vision quest and the sun dance. That time, like I've already mentioned, was absolutely pivotal. It totally changed. It gave me such a deep permission to like uncensor myself, even to a level that I didn't know that I was like going this deep. I didn't even know that depth
that it
existed.
exists.
So that was it, kind of like whew, blasted open. That kind of the parts that were holding me back. And the person that comes to my mind of who's really had a big impact on me is a lady called Carolyn Hillier, who is I call her like the Dartmoor witch. Where I live in England, it's in Devon, it's a place called Dartmoor, a really wild land, as far as England goes, a really wild place. And she's one of the few elders of my own land, my own heritage that I found. You know, I worked with many people from South America and from the Amazon and from the north, was always looking for the presence of elders, you know, feeling the deep loss of that. Where are my elders, as it would have been, as we would have had for thousands and thousands of years? And finding Carolyn has it's really changed my life. She introduced to me this language, the Proto-Celtic. She's been pioneering, uncovering this very, very ancient language and kind of reviving it and reclaiming it and inspiring many, many people to sing in this native tongue. And with that comes up this very profound remembering, we're all native. We're all native people. We're all native to our own land. We're all native to this earth. And there's such a deep medicine in remembering that and reclaiming that, each one of us, in, you know, the infinite ways that can look like, and the unique ways for each land. And working with her has really opened the doorway for me to connect with my own heritage as an English person, you know, to connect to that ancient memory and wisdom that has been very lost, you know, through a lot of violence and devastation, but not lost. Like,
it is still there,
safely buried in the earth, and it's asking for. And I think this is a story in so many lands across the earth. We're being asked to listen very carefully and do that tender work of bringing back to life the wisdom of our lands.
And it's true that it's some kind of a double-edged sword, that in the current world it's amazing how many influences we can encounter and work with, but it also can mean that we are a bit uprooted and distanced from our heritage, in which you already mentioned in which ways it's super important for you to be in touch with your roots, with your heritage, with your ancestry. But somehow in your music you are able to also blend it with other influences, with other languages, which I think is very unique. Can you say something about that for our audience?
Yeah, it's again, I'm seeing the tributaries. Like, this seems to be the symbol of our conversation, right? Like the different chapters of the paths that I've needed to walk, that have been the right medicine and for me in that moment of my life. And it's not like a mental conscious decision to, I'm going to sing in this language, or like, that sounds nice, I'm going to do that. It's been like certain things have touched my life and become something deeply important for me, and also allowed me to access a different part of myself. And that is the beauty of language also. It's like the language holds a consciousness and holds a memory of those people and those lands, and kind of allows a very particular part of ourselves to be expressed. So at the moment I'm singing in Spanish, English, Proto-Celtic, and a little bit in the Lakota language, you know, which is that one feels the most delicate one, because I don't have my own ancestral connection to that language. Like I was born in England. I have a whole side of my lineage which is Spanish and South American, Argentinian, and from Chile. So the Spanish is the language of my ancestors, and then the Proto-Celtic, and the Lakota is simply
you cherish it.
I cherish it, and you know, I feel like somehow it feels very familiar to me, and I guess I just want to say that in this conversation of like, I don't take it lightly to lean into a tradition that is not mine, you know, especially with the history as a white person of what white people have done to the native people, and cultural appropriation. It's a very, very delicate one.
And
so
I'm
I do
very
that with
happy
deep
that
honour.
you mentioned it, actually, because sometimes we do practices or use medicines which are not ours, and as it is more available to bigger number of people, I'm very happy that you touched upon this delicacy, with such delicacy we should approach these practices, and that we should be conscious about our decisions towards it. Right, but maybe I want to ask you more about the languages. Do you have, and your creative process, do you have certain topics or emotions, thoughts, which are easier for you to pronounce and express in certain language? Because I know it from myself that sometimes some expression in English feels or in other language feels more accurate than the one in Czech. So how is it in your work or life?
In all honesty, it just happens. It's just very, very clear, and it is there is a reflection of where I'm at in my life. So at the moment, it's all about Proto-Celtic. I'm basically, if I look back at my last, year of songs, it's all English with Proto-Celtic fusion, and that's a reflection of where I'm at in my journey right now. Whereas if I was I spent the winter in Brazil. I don't speak Portuguese, but for me being there, it kind of awakens the Spanish, because it's a much closer energy. So when I was there, I was writing in Spanish.
It came naturally.
It just happens,
yeah. And I'm wondering about Proto-Celtic, because I'm not very aware of what it might mean, and I think that it might be something new for a lot of people. What did you find through Proto-Celtic or through the work with your teacher back in UK you mentioned? Like some surprising fact maybe about your heritage or about your roots, or how Proto-Celtic is reflecting this?
A surprising fact. I mean, just the very fact of what the language is was very surprising for me, and I'm still in awe. So they say it's the oldest recorded version of the Celtic languages. So the modern day Celtic languages, which is like in Ireland, in Scotland, in Wales, Britannia. There's a few places. The Proto-Celtic is said to be like the root language or the mother language of those languages. So again, we have this kind of tributary image, and they believe that people 4,000 or 5,000 years ago would have been speaking the Proto-Celtic version. So if you can imagine all the current day Celtic languages, they kind of come to this root of this language. And just for me, this very fact, I go like, wow, the story that language holds. And of course every language has its history and its story and its roots, and what happened with the people, and how did the people travel, and how did the language change, and the consciousness that is held within our language. Like, I've been fascinated along my journey to learn like very little bits of native languages, like these really, you know, root languages, like how they speak in the Amazon, or the Arawaku people in Colombia, for example. You know, they have such amazing words. They have words for things that in English we just don't have words for that. Like, they'll have a word for like the way the light falls gently through the trees in the morning, you know, like a word for that.
It sounds like a poem already.
It's poetry, and it's a reflection of the consciousness of the people. And I've been learning a bit about the Old English, not necessarily the Celtic, but just Old English that was spoken probably even, you know, 150 years ago. And they'll have amazing words. It's all basically nature-based. Amazing words that are describing things in nature that we as modern day people don't even consider to exist, because it's not relevant for our modern day life. And this is so tragic. You know, like, why is that not, like, one of the classic ones that many people know is, I think, for the Inuit people, they have like 100 words for snow.
Yes.
And in England they have this same, like, on the moorland they have this very dark earth called peat. And they had something like 50 words for the variations of the peat, because it was relevant for their life.
It was crucial for everyday life.
Yeah, or many different ways for the way that the water moves on the land. And yeah, this, for me, learning these old languages or learning Proto-Celtic is giving me access to the consciousness in which those people 5,000 years ago would have existed. There are words in this language, you know, like Wotlakkait, for example. It means like a song that is a prayer that is gently whispered.
Wow. That is like, beautiful.
Okay, in English we just have like song.
Yeah. And it also maybe provides us with a glimpse towards their way of thinking, right? And how the language structures our everyday life and how we see the world.
Absolutely. The relationship in which they lived with the spirit in all things. Yeah. That was very real and important, and you know, we have lost so much of that, and I really believe, and this is the power of this language, like it's crucial that we as humanity kind of re-enchant, go on this journey of re-enchantment with the beauty of this life, with the living spirit in all things, because without this we will continue our paths of destruction, and it's, you know, it's pretty clear where that path is going to lead us, and to kind of fall back in love with, wow, oh my God, yes, look at how the light falls through, that feeling of a prayer and a song that is gently whispered to the wild land, like that's a whole other state of consciousness, and a state of living, and a living relationship where our actions and our choices will be made very differently compared to the absence of that, that deep sense of belonging here.
I think this is amazing concluding remark and wish for future to find our voices, our new or ancient words for the beauty around us. And maybe my last question would be if you can share with us some wish for the upcoming years of the Healing Festival, and people who visited this festival or consider to visit this festival, or artists, if you have some wish for us all.
I feel it's a reminder of that gatherings like this are something very needed and very powerful in this time, to not underestimate the powerful impact and ripple that coming to a gathering like this can have, not only on ourselves as individuals, but also on our families, our community, and on the collective. You know, it's not just about, oh, I go and, you know, have loads of fun and then kind of go back to my normal life. Like, there is an opportunity and an invitation at a festival like this to really be deeply nourished and inspired and awakened and make connections and bring what we experience here, to bring that back into our life, like to bring that light, to kind of nurture our own light and the love and the light of our own hearts, and to kind of take that out into the world and be a beacon for other people, and be a beacon in this time, and allow that inspiration to move us in our life, and to make changes and make decisions that we do things differently, and to yes, again, this word re-enchantment, like to walk this path of re-enchantment, devotion and loving and kindness and generosity and respect and honour for life. So that's, you know, something like that. Like, this is part of bringing the change that we need in this time.
I have nothing to add to that, because you said everything and it was beautiful, and thank you very much for your words, music and time. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you.